We're getting pings everywhere. We're getting pings everywhere. Okay, anyways, now that things are fixed, I'll actually apply my opinion to this. MIBR, Oxygen, very excited about this. I think that the map pool, just like Michael was talking about, is definitely going to play into this. But I honestly think that we're going to go the full 3 maps. I can't tell you who's going to win this, though. Not strictly based off the maps. I do think that the Villa pick is going to scare Oxygen just a little bit, just like what Michael was talking about with the maps inside of the analyst desk. I think that this is really up in the air. It's really just what Oxygen brings to the table that could be the big game changer for me.
Yeah, Villa very much Brazil territory in the map pool right now, as far as I'm concerned. They're the region that thrives the most, and I obviously don't have the stats to back this up immediately, but I'm pretty sure plays it the most when compared to any other region also. So a lot more comfortability going to be coming out from MIBR inside of this matchup, but we can talk a little bit more about the maps later as we have the bans in front of us. And to be fair, they're relatively straightforward, save for the Jackal ban coming out there as our second attacker ban. Everything else aligning pretty well with what we've already seen throughout the rest of this event.
Okay, well, defensive bans already in, offensive bans out, and as you said, the usual suspects that we'd see across the board, all except for the Jackal. Really, we haven't seen too many Jackal bans come out as of late, but you can't exactly blame them. Jackal, very influential operator in Chalet, a map where, well, you tend to want to roam around on the defense and attempt to get some influence over the offense. We've seen a lot of defensive play so far on Chalet, be quite aggressive, try and get in the face of the offense and limit their potential, especially early on in the rounds.
Look at an early 6 pick here. An interesting one there for Kinos. We're going to go to a Lion over towards an Ash. Won't be the most groundbreaking shift, as it ultimately just puts a more normal attacking operator lineup in the pool for OXG, but might throw MIBR, make them play a little bit slower here for those opening few seconds of the round while they'll be expecting the E1D charge. Aside from that, though, MIBR working on quickly setting things up here, taking out the beautiful woodwork underneath that dining room table so that they can have a better angle shooting into players that may be pushing from the main lobby, and while they still hold from the relative safety of that connecting hallway and kitchen itself. You're going to see quite a bit of top-down angles being set up here over towards the bedroom area as well. Some reinforcements to boot so that MIBR can play their extended game here for as long as possible. Quite a bit inside of that bathroom there, too, including a frost mat going over the window.
This is very interesting so far by MIBR, and very nice top hold up here. There's going to be a Banshee outside for K9 as well. And you saw them breaking up the dining room table down low inside of dining. So it seems like MIBR may be wanting to back up toward the north side, but this is where OXG are going to come into play. It looks like that they also want to actually hit from this side, and this could be a very big mix-up here for MIBR, simply because most of their utility is pointed towards that library side, and if Oxygen start breaking things down this way, they're going to have to shift something up.
Yep, the Zero play already coming out there from Laxing, using 2 of the Argus cams to deal with some of the defaults, as well as set up some of their own cameras to replace them and hopefully get better purview throughout the rest of the round here. Reduct going to be the first player from either team to take any serious damage on the inside of this round as he goes down to sub 50 after taking some heat from an Oxygen cross. Not able to kill him, though, so he'll still remain alive as he safely retreats closer to the site, and OXG start to take small bits of map control away now that the first minute has gone, and this becomes a lot more prevalent to their actual success on the inside of the round. We can see it starting out mainly with the Solarium control, but it's going to be the Solarium kill now for Yoga as he takes out Filippo through the wall.
Well, so far so good for Oxygen, able to get the initial pick as well as the damage onto Reduct. Still have some MIBR members to worry about upstairs, but plenty of time to be able to process this, get this push to go off without a hitch, have plenty of utility at their disposal as well. Falls will continue to work the angles from down low that they have set up through the flooring. Some smokes out. Yaga with 2 now on the prone angle as MIBR overstay their welcome and overextend back into the bathroom, just trying to find some safe space, but seems like there is no safe space inside of Chalet for any Brazilian. It's Lucadera, the only man remaining upstairs inside a piano. Still has one on his window, but this is looking like an Oxygen round all over the board. Looks like he's ready for the gunfight. Only sees the head. Kino knocked out, but doesn't seem like that is going to be too much to worry about for the rest of OXG as they'll get the case down low.
in Paris right now or Headshot City, because these players are popping them off like crazy. Lucan, we're going to see if he can get any more. Unfortunately, not the case, but there is another headshot just coming from Yogg as he secures, I believe, a 4K on the inside of that round, shutting every single player down. And I think every single pick was with a headshot as well. It's that brutal accuracy from Oxygen that MIBR are going to have to watch out for. That was a very big factor into specifically opening kills in their matchup versus Empire yesterday. Their ability to constantly get that opening pick and absolutely decimate the player challenging it as well. And it seems that that trait has carried over, at least based on that very first round right there, into today.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I think that round right there, you can really chalk up to the strategy of Oxygen and how they were able to use Yaga with the other counter angles that they had from their other players, especially with how quickly they handled Master and started applying pressure to the top floor of MIBR's hold. It just forced them into some very poor decision making. I think that Yaga abused that wholeheartedly, especially inside of that 2K that he got inside of the bathroom. I don't think anybody was ready for him to be not only be watching that path, but also be prone and prepared for two people to push it. That was just so well done from Yaga, and that's why Oxygen ended up with that round. They were not able to bully him out of Solarium.
An immediate cutoff onto the rotate out for the extended players on MIBR disallows them to really defend that site at any capacity as we get towards a late round scenario. OXG take a confident win on their first attacking round, and now we're going to see an immediate shift in the MIBR defense going towards that usual setup we have teams playing into, which as we can see is going to be a little bit of a bunker being deployed into the office for MIBR to play into, once again with the primary goal of delaying time, hopefully guaranteeing a couple trades as well before Oxygen try to move from the second floor down to the first floor for the attack.
This is very, very interesting right now. MIBR with a full office setup all the way across, not atop the site at all. There is not a single area in which you can actually work A or B in this area vertically from this area. So it looks like MIBR are prepared for a possible Master or Solarium clear across. But again, Oxygen look to be circumnavigating that. They're going directly around, instead playing for Library. And this is something that we see a lot of these teams do, this exact setup right here, either with X-Kairos or with Ace's Selma charges. You try to put some pressure onto this Library balcony player by breaking this panel. Now he's stuck between a rock and a hard place, and he more than likely has to contest this long distance angle with some guns that are better suited for that situation.
The utility is relatively interestingly spread out here. You know, the obvious one being that there's no ADS or any sort of utility mitigation there to support the position of Raps, as he was meant to have a pretty early fallback anyway, based on the way it was set up. Not going to pan out. Now the pressure shifts over to players like Reduct, who are now holding the corner against the front door take, as well as Filippo, who got pretty much all of the ADSs over by his position at the very top of blue. Obviously, the lack of defense on Raps will come back to bite them, but hopefully the extra reinforcement on some of the other players will yield better results. But so far, not to be the case. Laxing takes out yet another member of MIBR. Vertical did get dropped somewhere in that chaos, but has not been confirmed as of yet.
All right, well, MIBR with an opportunity here. Have Vertical down, technically a 3v4, but no one be able to clean him up as well. So will actually be a 3v4 at this point. Have some decent positioning inside of sight, but you have to be worried if you are an MIBR fan as to what happens to this top floor and exactly how they get out of this area. It seems like, well, at least one of them will be able to work their way down blue stairs. That's going to be Philippe Pox, so hold on to the stairwell here. Worried about a possible entry point from Laxing from Fireplace Hall, and he damn well should be. Lights Laxing down to a singular HP, and this is where Lucan could come into the mix, but he gets caught off guard by Laxing, who sees his feet. Philippe Pox with one, Philippe Pox with two, and that's the case down inside of games. Has the SMG-11 in hand. It's a 1v2, but he can't get it done. Oxygen with round two to follow suit through round one.
Valiant attempt from Philippe to put some aggression back into the play right there, but it's just too quick of a reaction from OXG, and that's something that they're going to have to deal with throughout the rest of this half. These very, very well set up positions for OXG, where if one player goes down, you're going to have one, if not more players immediately responding to that situation by trying to pick up a trait. Another trait we saw in their later group stage games, as well as the earlier playoff games, well, the one playoff game they had yesterday versus Empire, that is continuing to show them as a force to be reckoned with on the inside of SI 2021. OXG, a team that's come so close to greatness at lands in the past, but has never really been able to grasp it as much as they would have liked to. This is probably their best chance in quite a few years to make that impact, and they do not want to waste that opportunity.
This is more than likely the biggest tournament that we've seen Oxygen play in and have good results. I would think, thinking back right now, I think it's DreamHack Montreal 2019. When Cloud9 were able to win that when Goddess was still on the team and stuff like that. This is a very long time ago, as you guys are more than likely noticing. So this is the last time that we've seen this roster actually end up winning a tournament, which, you know, it might be due time, honestly. I mean, as of right now, Oxygen are looking quite good. I will say this, though, MIBR's strategy on defense has not been so solid up against how Oxygen are working the map. It seems that Oxygen have the counter almost every single time to what MIBR's thoughts are, but we'll see if this time is any different. It's going to be a kitchen defense. Obviously, we'll be holding on to this top floor. Philippok still going to dedicate a Banshee outside to K9, and, well, this vertical play coming through for MIBR once again.
Yeah, still seeing the bunker setup, but just a bit more extensive this time as it involves the bedroom room also, not instead of just playing into the office here. As Stokes is mentioning, the big issue right now for MIBR is their inability to control the early rounds, specifically these setups here, which are getting torn apart by Oxygen, who are kind of just getting the free opening pick or even two in a lot of these rounds here, and it's taking MIBR a really long time to find an appropriate response to that. It's a little bit hard, of course, for MIBR to look for that response. Oxygen is playing a very slow and calculated game right now, so mistakes are probably not going to pop up too often to where MIBR would be able to take an advantage, but they need to try and find something to utilize or bring some of their own aggression into the fold here. Otherwise, we could continue to see OXG continue to walk over these early rounds.
All right, well, we have a roaming Mira in the basement right now, so we'll get back to that one and see if Reduct can possibly get some frags. But all you have to know about that is mostly that, well, with a 3 armor, you're a little louder than everybody else and a little difficult to roam around how you necessarily want to. But Reduct getting rid of a lot of drones right now, and that could be of some assistance to MIBR later on into the round, as he's looking for his 3rd drone in the basement already. But, oh, the collapse coming through now. Hologram out for vertical, but Reduct's going to catch Yogg off guard. He'll almost get knocked out by that Vector, but instead, Yogg want to still be alive here. They'll get a good beat on Reduct, and they now know that he's inside of Snowmobile, waiting for the next push here, but this is more than likely going to be his demise. Vertical with the secondary entry, sneaks down blue stairs, able to assist his friend in his moment of need. Now with the rest of Oxygen on board right now with Kino, he's actually on K9, starting to apply pressure to this top hold. This is how Oxygen handling this map so well. I think this is the first time where they've actually had to get stretched thin on this top clear, and so far, so good.
Lucan with a very close quarters angle gets one of the members of OXG, and unfortunate for Vertical as he's going to line up right against that crosshair. An easy pick for Lucan. Raps apparently having the same luck befall him as he's able to take down Kino, bringing the situation much more under the control of MIBR here. The first time we're seeing slight signs of struggle for OXG as they're now going to try to continue to look for ways to get around this and overall pick up the win here. Of course, MIBR looking to delay in their own capacity, continuing to see those Toxic Babes roll out now that we are at pretty much 0 timer for being able to use those. 20 seconds left. The first one that was chucked out expiring at any second now, and they still have another one, which falls in the process of throwing out now. There it goes. That's the last bit of utility they have, and now MIBR, with the time getting low, they take a step forward and get a little bit more aggressive, which in this case has worked out. Another member of OXG falls to that aggression. Laxing makes the impact on entry, but unfortunately not going to be able to do anything else. Time is up. The round is over, and MIBR are on the board.
Fantastic round there by MIBR, and honestly, the roaming Mira doesn't seem like it was the worst thing in the world. They delayed a little bit of time, able to get quite a few drones off the board, and then while Oxygen are trying to resurge into the top floor, MIBR are able to get a handful of picks that really influence the latter half of that round and make it difficult for Oxygen to actually get their execute to go off. They don't truly have any vertical play to influence the gunfights going on, especially inside of dining, and MIBR are able to hold on to some very forward positions, giving Oxygen a lot of problems. Either way, though, that is going to be Oxygen's first lost offense as MIBR are able to claim kitchen. They'll move to bar gaming once again. Let's see if they try to adjust this top hold, though, away from office, more towards a centralized area of the building.
Yeah, this could explain why the pause is coming in so early. And I'll be honest, this is a really early pause coming in from MIBR. It might have been called prematurely in the middle of that last round in the event that Oxygen would have gone 3-0. But either way, it gives them an opportunity to reflect on the last bar defense here and hopefully make the necessary adjustments. As Stokes was mentioning, potentially putting maybe a little bit more pressure on the library or taking some of the emphasis away from the office hold. There's a couple options for how they can try to approach this, but we're going to be getting an answer to how exactly they think is the correct way in just a moment here when their pause time expires, and we of course go back into the game.
Yeah, it's not specifically that the office hold is bad, right? It's just the fact that Oxygen, as of right now, especially with the 2 rounds that they were obviously able to win, they simply went right around MIBR's strategy. Whatever the setup was, Oxygen did the exact opposite of what MIBR wanted them to do. And that's the difficulty of those rounds, especially with their Bar Gaming previous defense. They set up that entire office hold, but Oxygen don't set a single foot inside of it the entire time. The person that plays it the closest, I believe, is the K9 Rappel. That's about it. You don't have anyone enter the office, no one in Solarium, nothing at all. It's mostly centralized around library and dealing with that library balcony player. So it just makes it very difficult for any of the MIBR players that are over inside of the office area to have any influence. But that actually might change up here with these mirror windows coming in. I want to see how this could possibly have some influence, or if MIBR are actually going to be able to rotate players over to assist their other teammates when Oxygen start to deal with library.
Shield positioning going to be slightly different too. Overall, the office setup looking a little bit different than we had in the previous round. Had a lot of wasted utility as a result of the they tried to deploy in the blast round. And this is actually an interesting variance of it here. Giving the extended player on the balcony outside of library a mirror. Wow, look at that. And then double laser gating it with the one covering the mirror window being in front of the mirror window. So you now need to commit a whole load of utility if you want to take that out. That's actually a pretty strong setup, but that's also a pretty strong angle for Kino. Nearly cutting the head, or the waist, I suppose, off of Reduct. Once again, in the early round here, he nearly suffered a similar fate 2 rounds back.
That V308 absolutely bangs. Reduct almost dead after that one. That's quite a bit of damage, and no one can really heal you anymore. So we'll see if Reduct can possibly play out his life and have some sort of influence. Does look like Lukid will be moving some ADSs, and very, very smart. Able to get some insight as to where Oxygen are going to be pushing from. So they want to shift these ADSs around and see if they can give their deployable shield a little bit more longevity in its lifespan. It does indeed have a singular MIBR member above him. It's going to be Philippox currently inside of the office, and this is looking like a completely different Oxygen inside of this round. It's mostly just trading damage back and forth between these two squads. No true kill coming through just yet, especially as Reduct has been able to find some safe havens.
Nade up. It's going to bounce down onto Philippox's position, but it's ultimately just a distraction as Loxing swings wildly from out in the second floor hallway and completes the frag against Philippox. Once again, I believe that's the 3rd round now that OXG get the opening kill in their own favor. So far, no exchange coming out from MIBR, and it looks like it's going to stay that way until OXG take their next move here. MIBR still with a lot of presence, specifically leaning back towards the site. Falls with a great angle right now, for an example, to try and cut off OXG's members as they attempt to move out from the dining room positions. We are going to see one member of OXG get caught by the frost trap sitting down below here. Not sure if anyone's going to be able to retrieve that as of yet, but regardless, OXG are still fragging out here. Finally, responses start to go in as both Yogg and Laxing are taken down. Vert as well, gonna fall a moment after that due to falls. This hold on the inside of Billiards is working out in huge dividends right now for MIBR, as it might be the saving grace on the inside of this round. Kino has to fall back, has really no choice here. He's got to try to get Foxay back into this engagement, as now that'll at least bring it back to a 2v2.
And this seems to be the biggest issue for Oxygen right now. Foxay, having case control, hops through the window, ends up getting down by a frost mat, so they have to recuperate here, whether it be through resurgence into fights or what have you. It seems like they will be able to at least get the 2v2 going on for them, but Falls will down yet another and get the quad. MIBR tie things up with round 4 after Oxygen botch the execute. Very unfortunate that Fox ends up inside of that frost mat. It seemed like Oxygen were rearing to go up until that point, but obviously having Case on the ground is going to complicate things.
Massive round for Falls, and in general, the Billiards hold overall there. OXG spending so much time dealing with the out-of-sight presence, they don't think the in-sight presence is going to be much of a concern based on the way they executed upon it on the last attack. But clearly, that ends up being a crucial mistake for them, as Falls is able to shut down the large majority of the OXG roster, not to mention getting a Frost Trap kill on them, or a Frost Trap down, at least in the process there, against Foxe, to ultimately end the round from the inside of that very same site. Shift again coming in from MIBR with a successful defense, as they're going to be heading upstairs at least one more time here as we enter the final 2 rounds of this half.
Well, it appears Fleetpox did not like the Malusi pick or what the Banshee was exactly doing out on the balcony and wants to shift things up. Can't exactly blame them, especially with the alibi coming in, an operator that we don't get to talk about all too often, but one that definitely can have some influence over around, especially with the holograms at her disposal. If you end up hitting one of those, then, well, you're going to get marked out, and it's going to end up pinging your location a handful of times in quick succession, and that helps out a lot, especially in a game like Rainbow Six, where there's a lot of pre-fires that go on. As you can see, there's already one set up here on the master double window, so going to make that a little bit more difficult for the Oxygen members if they're starting to send shots through a lot of these random areas throughout the map. MIBR with, well, what seems to be their usual hold for this top floor, minus obviously that Malusi outside on the K9 balcony.
Drone ready.
OXG obviously just very early days on the approach for them, so nothing hugely important on the round-to-round perspective. Perhaps just kind of opening up a bullet hole through the barricade as well, while we continue to wait for OXG to continue exploring the options on the drone game. Now, this could be interesting right here, what we're seeing between Laxing and Kino. You'll obviously note the proximity to the site. They're trying to figure out now if they can try to do anything aggressive here. As you know, you get the Gone 6 preps. They're looking for a quick opening on that barricade if they're going to use it here. But let's see if they actually follow through with that or not, because Raps seems to have a feeling that something's up here.
This is really, really scary because there's barbed wire on the other side of that door, and I don't exactly know if the Gone's going to take out both of them. I have not played with it enough in order to know that. So we'll see. He's going to get stuck inside the... Oh, no, it gets rid of the barbed wire as well, but still Falls is there to be able to man the door. He takes down Kino. Surprise entry by Oxygen grants a surprise kill to MIBR. That's a line off the board as well. The EE1D's all gone, and MIBR with one of their first opening bloods.
Interesting choice to send Kino in, of all players, considering both the scoreline and the operator that he was on. But either way, the choice has been made, and now they have to deal with the consequences. Now down at a 4v5. Yogg with an opportunity to trade on the Pixel Peak, but never mind, gets a second opportunity there. Takes out Felipox. Nice shots from Yogg, as he's been absolutely slaying it on the inside of this matchup right now. Currently 7-2. A nice nade goes in, does manage to down Reduct as well, although there's a good chance he might be retrieved. However, with those X-Kairos going off, maybe not. He's trying his best to crawl back behind safe coverage. They're going to look to get him up. I'm unsure if he's peeked behind that breach or not, but either way, Reduct retrieved, brought back into the fold, and MIBR redoubling their deployable shield down to the outskirts of the piano room, and another mirror window coming down here late as well. MIBR, doesn't matter. They have got a mobile strategy ready to be deployed here, apparently.
They brought the mobile battle station. That's exactly what they did. They're prepared for war up against Oxygen, and Reduct might be counting his lucky stars that he kept that black mirror in his back pocket, because going down in this 4v4, especially with 30 seconds remaining, things are going to get pretty dicey here. So having more information through that wall now is definitely going to assist them. Falls getting lots of stuns chucked at him, but I don't exactly know if they've actually blinded him. Vertical might be looking for a hop very soon, but oh no, gets blasted by the M590. He's been down. They attempted the plant there for just a split second, but are they aware of Raps' Echo drone inside of the actual room with them? Doesn't seem like they are, and it doesn't even truly matter at the end of the day. MIBR pick up every single Oxygen member through the traditional means of shooting them instead of anything else. MIBR now with 3 rounds in a row.
I actually really like the strategy for MIBR there too, because I think they've come to a realization that in these like open gunfights, especially at longer ranges, they don't seem to be having the greatest results coming out from those. So they've really tried to draw Oxygen and make them fight for control over the site, as we saw in the initial fight being taken by Kino there through that push, and then slowly pull it back, you know, deploy those extra pieces of utility as necessary as they lose or don't lose certain pieces of map control by the site, and then are able to try and control the situation from there. Definitely some risk involved in that, as obviously you have the massive potential for wasted utility if those players go down, but in that case, it worked out perfectly.
Attackers need to locate and defuse bombs.
I think the only thing there that could have really changed up for Oxygen is probably just not use Kino for that entry and probably use somebody else just to have the EE1Ds to have some effect on MIBR going later into that round, because that's really where MIBR thrived, right? Is being able to move around while Oxygen are making their entry and find these frags. If they're locked up and you can at least get some space inside of Office under your control and find some area to work with, then you're more than likely going to find more success, right? So I feel like maybe the Kino entry point there was not the greatest thing in the world, but obviously that's why they're professional players and we are not. Oxygen should be shifting up some game plans now, though, as they have obviously lost 3 rounds in a row. It's a kitchen dining defense once again here for MIBR, which was successful the last time that we saw them go here.
Reduct just having to chuck that electrical down a couple of times in case there's any new viewers wondering why he had to do that. Well, obviously that circle implies how far the electricity spreads, and he wants it to get on all 3 walls, which sometimes requires a slight amount of precise placement, but not too much of an issue in that specific situation. Either way, though, OXG out and about yet again, already chucking out those Argus cameras to try and see what information they can glean. And well, Kino apparently has got to work on his drone arm because he's not going to be gleaming anything with the drone sitting down there in the pit.
Hey, everybody close your eyes right now. I don't want no Kino slander in the chat. Nobody say a word, all right? Hey, we all have those days, you know. Sometimes drones just don't catch what you want, or you'll throw like a stun at the window and it'll just bounce back at you and blind yourself, and either, you know. So the stuff like that is just sometimes the throwables in the game just don't exactly do what you want them to do. But unfortunate for him not able to get the drone inside. But either way, though, it looks as though Master is cleared for the time being. He's still going to be manning this window in assistance with Yogg, who's going through the actual clear inside. He's just actually set up on the supporting angle here in case anyone wants to get frisky or something like that. Either way, MIBR still holding on to this top floor. Raps sitting right inside the piano hallway. Does have the opportunity to have a possible peek coming through quite soon, but this round, as opposed to the other ones, moving pretty slow. Still have Laxing setting up some Argus cams around as well, as he'll get some good information around the fireplace hall area. He's going to be on repel for most of this round, more than likely just simply cutting off these rotations, as Oxygen are still trying to find their first pick, but they can't do it. It's Raps up against Kino, and Kino loses in full.
First kill no longer a certainty for OXG anymore, as it seems to have finally shifted away from that trend that had been going on earlier in the half. They're starting to find a lot more confidence to take these duels and, more importantly, win them against OXG here, as we see another one nearly go the way of, honestly, either team based on the health that's left on those players afterwards. Both Yogg as well as Raps taking some serious damage from it. Yogg, in fact, getting into a second skirmish, suffering from the same fate, and this time not really able to return anything, unfortunately. So he's kind of down for the count here at a sliver of HP remaining. We'll have to be very cautious if he wants any hope of using that utility. Now dead, though, as he goes down to the ground, finished off by the toxic gas. Vertical is able to lurk into a corner to be able to trade that against Falls, eliminating the smoke and establishing a position incredibly close to the site. But still, with the top presence established, Reduct still close inside of the dining room. Oxygen more than likely not going to be able to commit just as of yet there, especially with Reduct hitting shots like that. Bye-bye to Fox. Case is now on the ground. Vertical has been dropped too, and the last 2 from OXG still alive falter seconds later as MIBR claim another round to end the half.
What a stretch of defenses here from MIBR, playing it to an absolute tee up against Oxygen. Oxygen only really finding success inside of those first 2 rounds where they practically had the whole counter up against MIBR, whereas inside of these last 4, they're able to just grab it by the reins and simply walk away with it. The opening engagements are really nice by MIBR. They're able to have a lot of influence, especially over Kino. He was not allowed to exist for most of these last couple of rounds. You know, it's really, really difficult, especially for Oxygen, when they're losing such influential utility early on, especially with how often Kino was playing Lion right there. And they weren't able to really translate that into anything on site anyways. It's not like they were trading out for an MIBR member, and now we're in a 4v4. It was mostly just dealing some damage to an MIBR member and possibly losing 1 to possibly 2 of your members, or just having somebody take a lot of damage like that last round, where we saw Yaga get just almost obliterated on, you know, trophy stairs. So it just makes it difficult for Oxygen to really get forceful with anything, because how do you get forceful when a single bullet decides if you die or not?
Very true points. So it's now up to OXG to turn things around on their own defensive half here. We're really going to see some interesting little wrinkles coming into the mix here for them, as they're going to bring out the Clash and the Goyo into the full 2 operators I don't believe we saw from MIBR. I know that's the case for Clash, not just 100% on the Goyo. But either way, these are mainstay picks for OXG. Not too surprising, well, specifically the Goyo is not too surprising to see that being brought out here. The Clash, definitely going to be interesting to see how it is used, though, as she has been brought out quite a bit on this map specifically in order to cause that annoying bit of delay that she is most often known for.
Might be the only thing she's known for, honestly. Like, what else is Clash known for?
And like the stupid 180 trick shots, like.
I was gonna say, is she like good at baking or something, John? Like, is there something I don't know? Oh man. Either way, though, it looks like MIBR will be quickly working their way into the building, at least from Mudroom, as Philippe Hux will be starting us off. The rest of his team, though, will be working on the rest of the building, at least info-wise. Reduct clearing out some utility up top. Already handled the soft panel here and started to get some good insight onto the site. They're well aware that there is a Clash on the field now, so they'll have to deal with that a little later on. But getting a second look here at the lineup for MIBR, they actually have some pretty interesting things, most notably Falls as well as Lukid coming in here with the dual smokes. We've been seeing a lot more Thermite play here at the Six Invitational because of a recent change in hard destruction. Ace losing his smoke grenades, those smoke grenades going on over to Thermite, so taking just a little bit of utility away from Ace, and trust me, he had plenty of it, giving that to Thermite, making him a little bit more viable. But the Twitch play coming in here, this is one that we don't see too often. Her drones can have some influence up against electronics, but it looks to be like MIBR simply want to smoke out as many angles as they can to deal with Oxygen's possible longer distance or longer angles inside of the actual site.
I think trying his best to take out the drone real quick. Obviously, the TCSG a little bit more imprecise, or more importantly, lacking the firepower to do that so easily. So, extra shot or two needed. Either way, though, MIBR ready to start applying some pressure to the close rooms next to the site here. Going to be immediately running into the issue of the Clash, but with the Zofia in play here, and well, actually, neither of the stun grenades being capable of being used here could present a possible problem if they have not been able to really force Foxay back. All they've done is push him into the office corner. You still have a player supported with deployable shields sitting in front of the piano. Foxay, of course, now fending off the balcony rotate into the site. Reduct as well with a wild swing, finds Laxing, and is able to execute him as well. Kino, though, gets his own response by taking out one of the members of MIBR, so we will stay even. But Vertical pushes that envelope forward, and more importantly, pushes the case onto the ground. Vertical trying to push further back from the site, so not to leave himself too exposed and avoid situations like that, where Lukid is going to be able to take out Kino. Now putting us into a 3 versus 3. 15 seconds left, though. MIBR now need to push their own selves forward here and make a plan attempt. But they'll lose another player while trying to do that. Raps, though, putting it down on the ground. Foxay going to try to stop the plan itself. He actually can't stop the case here going down in a very awkward exchange. But ultimately, as you can see on the left side of your screen, everyone's now dead. So not going to be too much to worry about there. OXG still pull off the retake with relative ease. 3 players still standing and take control of their initial defensive round.
Well, I thought, America's E-Boy was going to get his first kill there, but it didn't happen, and I feel bad for Fox now, because I thought, honestly, he whips out the pistol. He's like, yes, I finally get to participate in the kills, and then Yogg just kills him right in front of him. But either way, that was a really well-timed round by Oxygen. The Clash pick there is really what stood out to me, because MIBR did what we talked about before. They wanted to try and break up lines of sight and attempt to get a plant down, but that was highly abusable by Foxay because he's playing Clash. They really can't deal with him, especially because they didn't have any concussions there or anything to exactly do so inside of that engagement. There was no one there to be able to assist. So he simply just got information, held people still with the electroshock, marked them at their feet, and let the rest of his team shoot them through the smoke. That's exactly what happened with that vertical engagement. He was able to move up into the office, actually, to get some assistance. So I actually think he was able to work around that smoke. But either way, it's just very, very well done from OXG to slow down MIBR's push to almost an absolute halt, to where, well, at that last kill, just like you guys saw, the man putting down the case is actually the last one alive. So again, very well done from OXG as they get their first round on defense.
The case, or the clash, excuse me, not the case. The clash is shown initially on the pick phase for OXG, but they do 6-pick it away over onto the Frost instead, which at this point would be more expected on this specific site. So hopefully by 6-picking it in, going to be able to surprise the MIBR, maybe get themselves a nice Frost Trap kill or two, as we've been seeing those pop up every now and again, both here at SI and as well with the rising prevalence of Frost inside of the regional leagues also. MIBR out on the table yet again, though, with some initial pressure already working its way onto the Solarium room. Just opening up and sitting on Repel, mind you, right now, but we'll start to see more than that pretty quickly, as you've got quite a few members starting to surround that part of the map. That's not the only area where we're going to see members of MIBR try to take control.
To this day, it still trips me out when someone rappels to the roof of Chalet, just because you used to not be able to. So every once in a while when you see what somebody do, it's like, wait, oh yeah, you can do that now, can't you? Well, what else you can do is possibly get blown up by Laxing inside of the building, and well, Reduct knows what that feels like. That's all the air jabs down, all except for apparently one that Reduct did indeed have set up, but they'll be getting rid of that quickly as well as Oxygen in the driver's seat once again.
Finding that opening kill, keeping their record relatively clean in that regard here, as they try to gather back control over this matchup that they've lost control of despite that previous statistic. Now 5v4, definitely something that will slow down the overall pacing for MIBR, and that means that OXG can also breathe a slight sigh of relief here while they wait for MIBR to, of course, kind of re-strategize and figure out what their best next possible move is going to be here, now that they can't really take any outright aggressive steps forward without risking another player, something that they obviously can't do now that they're already down one. They would not want to try and push that envelope even further. Yogg continuing to wait out on that top blue position as well, probably going to end up being the next player to get tested here. That's, of course, after MIBR figure out how to get past this laser gate setup, using one of the pieces of utility to open up the hallway, but still another one of those sitting in the way. So they're going to use a piece of hard breach on the inside of Office, actually, to open up the details on this entire balcony and kind of skip that second Aruni gate.
Some decent damage dealt to Vertical there. I almost thought it was through the flooring, but that's actually Foxay down low. Kino able to get the second frag of this round. MIBR now down into a 3v5. They're trying to find the initial kill here as they will smoke off the hallway, but actually just ends up backing off Oxygen members more than it does anything else. They still be able to find some space, but they're taking quite a bit of damage in the process. Luka now down to a singular bullet's worth of HP. Kino will end up dusting him. Can't get the second frag here, but are they aware of the Jaeger inside? Doesn't seem like that's actually the case. It's all down to Falls now inside of the 1 versus 3 as MIBR being dealt with handedly right now from Oxygen. Multiple angles to worry about, and Falls more than likely quickly to go here, but actually doesn't get taken out by the bar stock player like we first assumed. Instead pushes up. Foxay finally getting the frag and that vector under control to take down Falls, and Oxygen tie things up.
MIBR coming close inside of, especially the mid-round gunfights. They can trade in an open skirmish with OXG. That's not the problem right now for MIBR. The problem is their inability to control these early rounds where issues have constantly been popping up and plaguing them. Yes, they were able to clean this up towards the end of the first half, but the same issue is showing once again on their attack, and they're going to have to go through that same process of correcting those mistakes if they want to try and still maintain control of this matchup. Not to mention, on the individual front, almost everything is, no pun intended here, falling to Falls right now in order to do the work here for MIBR. He's at 10 frags.
Especially for the roles that he's playing as well. It's not something that you exactly see every day. You know, usually the man with the case control, and he's got the most frags right now as well. So doing double duty, one would say. Either way, though, Oxygen are going to head to the basement now. Everything tied up here, folks, 4-4, so they're looking to extend this lead now. Want to try and take away this map, get us to Villa as quickly as possible. And I think Villa is really where this best of 3 is going to pop off between these two. I think that Chalet, a lot of people were probably excited for it. I was excited for it just because Chalet is new. I like to see how the different regions are currently thinking about this map. And obviously getting some different insight from different squads and regions is always nice as well. But I think Villa just being the shadow pick for MIBR there, not having really any history on it in recent times, as well as Oxygen just not really playing it either. I think that that's where things are going to get pretty crazy, but we still have to get through Chalet, and we're at a pretty good starting point right now inside of this best of 3. And oh, we're starting to get down to the cheeky strats, folks. Looks like Fox A is going to be holding up the drone hole here as Clash.
Yes, we'll see how that annoyance will potentially trip up the MIBR clear. To be fair, no one immediately heading in. Never mind. Looks like we're going to start to see people drift over towards that way. I was going to say not immediately seeing anybody go over there to try to work on that hard breach, but going to become an issue pretty quickly here, as they will eventually more than likely have to go down that path. Aside from that, though, MIBR focusing, it seems, a lot more on the upstairs clear right now, and for Falls' case, focusing on trying to get a new drone out, as he's going to lose that to the Mozzie Pest being deployed by Laxing. He's already positioned that in a good spot here, so that Fox A can also get some nice support, not having to immediately keep an eye on that angle for himself. Philippox going to start to push down those back stairs to hopefully put a little bit more pressure on the back of this site and prevent OXG from rotating out that way.
It was a much slower round so far for both of these teams, although MIBR are indeed inside the building. It's just mostly been Oxygen not as attentive to where they are actually entering from. No nitro cells or anything to try and take out any MIBR members. Oxygen have gotten a couple drones early on here, but nothing to really call home about just yet. MIBR have simply taken control of the kitchen area, as well as a little of the top floor around Master, and started to use their drone info to clear out the rest of the building. It looks like they want to go for a pretty traditional take, at least nowadays, for the basement area, which is the wine stock. This back end, it's very, very difficult to defend, especially when this panel gets opened here. That usually follows suit with the far side panel, the one that Fox is standing next to right now, this north side panel getting opened as well, and more than likely going to attempt to plant on the east side. But you can see Oxygen already prepared for this because of how dire this situation can get. It's a 4-on-4 right now, technically speaking, inside of what seems to be less than 200 square feet.
I want to highlight there, Kino nearly able to pull off the trick, just less than a second off, I think, from that electric wall being able to properly activate and fend off reach. Lukid, in the meanwhile, Nitrocell goes off. That's not where the kill comes from. It's instead Lukid sniping out Yogg. Kino also getting dropped from his position. Reduct getting some info as well onto what I believe was a vertical spot just a moment ago, so going to try and hunt him down if the opportunity presents itself. Now a Nitro rolls out. That's going to take down Falls, but Reduct immediately finding out vertical here. Down to only 2 active players for the members of OXG. A nice find from Laxing, but he's going to do a heck of a lot more than that, and unfortunately can't get it done. Lukid completes the flank. MIBR shut down round 9 and stay in control of the lead.
That bomb site is just so difficult to try and defend. I mean, Oxygen throw everything except the kitchen sink at MIBR, and they're able to stunt them in every single facet along the way, and actually end up taking down Foxy as the last remaining member. And funny enough, that was the initial member that they were worried about. We saw the amount of Zofia concussions they ended up using against him to try and take him down, but it was actually the rest of Oxygen to fall first. So that shield definitely helping out Foxy in that regard, but not helping in the assist with the rest of the team. It seemed to be that singular panel that ended up being the fall from grace for Oxygen inside of that round, and they're going to be moving away from the basement. Can't exactly blame them for that. Wine stock, just not a fun area to try to defend, so they're going to be headed upstairs to Master.
We'll say the upstairs site yields better results. Certainly some more freedom, I think, in their overall movements throughout the round due to MIBR not immediately starting to crunch down on their positions due to the awkwardness of playing into the basement on most maps in Siege in general. OXG hopefully going to have a little bit more freedom this time, and in general a little bit more comfortability on this site, which we've already seen play reach into in the past. For MIBR, though, with control of the matchup once again, now just 2 rounds away from being able to shut this one down. Some great play from Lukid in the midst of that last round. He's going to continue to look for that on the inside of the Ash play yet again on round 10. Some similar notes being brought out for OXG. The Clash once again going to try to cause issues that ultimately MIBR were never really able to deal with on the inside of that last round. That on top of the multitude of aggressive peaks from OXG while holding their positions is a big checklist for MIBR to try and fix up now as they go for this attack, I believe for the second time in this half.
Yeah, it's a good conversation point with the Clash as well. I know we've been kind of harping on that a decent bit, but the thing about Clash is that she provides so much, but also she changes the dynamic of how your defense works, because technically speaking, now you're 4 people in a shield, because you don't exactly want Clash to be trying to run and gun the entire time or do something drastic because of just how influential that shield can be. So, for instance, like inside of that last round, Foxy got a lot of shocks off on the MIBR, slowed them down quite a bit, but no one was able to frag out, and obviously he didn't have a gun to have influence over that, ends up getting taken out before he even can get the pistol out. So lots of issues there, but now issues for MIBR, who ends up taking down Raps early on. So just like we were talking about before with Oxygen and that dynamic of having that shield in play, now things all of a sudden shifting gears for MIBR, and it looks like to be changing even more. Yaga with the double kill, he's over it now, and well, it looks like Lucan will be locked up here. Has to deal with a possible one jumping down, and oh no, not like that. The cerebral assassin Lucan. Oh my God, Foxy, you just got sauce, man. You just got played. It's a 3v3 now, and MIBR, you got to do something with that play.
We're talking about how it was really only Falls contributing on the individual front. That's changed in a major way over these past few rounds. Lucan absolutely decimating Oxygen these past couple rounds, with that play being just one example of what we've seen out of this player. Now, a minute and a half to go. Just now seeing MIBR only equalize the situation. That's what we still have to remember as the core element of this round right now. OXG still very much prepared for the rest of these players to work their way in. So let's take a look at the strategy from MIBR, which right now entails quite a bit of a pinch leaning towards the bathroom side. And there we go. They're going to start to take that control now. Ultimately, though, to go right into Yogg's crosshair, as now Lucan, the most impactful player in this round, to be sure, loses his life. But Falls, as well as Reduct, are still available.
Well, the issue right now for MIBR is that it seems like we're all just living in Yaga's world as he continues on this reign of terror so far inside of round 10. It's a triple kill right now on pace for the A's. Laxing, though, will end up dashing those hopes away as he takes down Reduct. All we can see is the quad, but that'll be Oxygen tying things up either way. It's a 1v3 right now for Falls, make it a 1v2. 30 seconds remaining as Yogg hops the deck, able to find the angle onto Falls and get the quad kill for his team. Yaga seemingly unstoppable right now on Chalet.
Close to fair, though, especially when you consider the trades that came out from Lucan in the mid-round there. MIBR still nearly able to shut that one down as they ultimately bring it to a 1v1, but that slow, held-back play from Oxygen, relying on their setup angles, as well as, of course, all the soft destruction that they had done in the prep phase there, ends up netting them the win as they take control 5-5, and once again tie this series up at that scoreline. MIBR looking to try and steal that control away and get themselves onto match point first, but with the way these teams are trading, and OT is also very likely in the future over these next 2 rounds.
Yeah, this is getting closer and closer by the second. MIBR losing out that last round off of a huge effort from Yaga, although the rest of the team obviously having influences in their own way are going to have Foxy working his way away from the Clash and onto the Pulse instead. And this is an operator that we talk about quite a bit when it comes to buildings like Chalet, as well as Consulate and things like that, but we talk about it even more when it comes to Foxy. This is one of his mainstay operators, as well as running one of the most unique setups attachment-wise on the gun. So some of you guys at home will more than likely be experiencing that for the very first time if you don't watch the NAL. It's that nice red dot angled grip and extended barrel. Just, it looks weird, but you know, when Foxy is getting aces on Consulate with it, you can't really complain.
So we'll see what exactly Foxy is going to be able to bring out with this. Hopefully, netting themselves a little bit better results, as we have seen Oxygen have some slight issues dealing on lower floored sites, dealing with that top-down pressure that was coming in from MIBR. With the obviously just the basement round being the more notable example of that. We haven't seen anything crazy, and Oxygen struggling on the defense just as of yet, safe for that round. But some issues were presented, and they're now going to add the Pulse into the play to try to correct some of that here. But the problem is, got Raps working his way in from downstairs right now. The strategy is a little bit different this time from MIBR. Still could see the prowess come out from the Pulse, more importantly, the intel, but at the same time, have to watch out. We're seeing that utility being deployed here. Not to too much success as of yet. Vertical does lose about half of his HP from one of those nades, I believe, but the second one is a miss, and Vertical will still be in the fight with that utility now gone from the attackers.
Okay, so MIBR clear out the entire basement, able to get sledged inside a big garage, push the Nomad in from the other side, lock up basement area, at least rotate-wise, make it difficult for them to seemingly get to Fireplace Hall if I'm judging it based off of that air jab. MIBR more than likely worried about some frost mats, but they're not there. And yes, actually hops in and makes sure to look down. Does not want to fall to the same fate as we've seen a multitude of people do inside of that room. Although MIBR still gung-ho upstairs, able to get some vertical play going on inside of the office area, and this is going to give them a decent amount of insight into dining, and that's currently where Foxay is playing. He's getting a lot of intel, though, with that cardiac sensor, and is more than likely able to assist the rest of his team with that intel, all except for vertical. He's going to get caught off guard down low here by Reduct.
A bomb has been located.
Breach is being opened by MIBR to grant access to the dining room. The problem is a little bit messy there, as you can see. It's not the perfect hole. They can still crawl under that, but obviously that's not what they would have wanted, the way that they were opening that up. No remaining X-Kairos charges either on Falls' inventory. You can see the final 6 still muted on the left side of that wall, so no chance to correct that. Gonna have to just play around it instead. 45 seconds remain. They do have the player advantage going into this execute. But the problem is with that awkward breach, how exactly is that potentially going to mess things up for them? This Falls, like I said, can no longer directly push through. This has to crawl in. The only good news right now is the fact that we don't have OXG directly challenging that angle in any sense. But the problem, yeah, is the smoke's getting in the way. Falls, though, quickly corrects that by taking out the smoke player and bringing us down to only 3 on the OXG roster. Reduct also quickly pinching out the remaining players, holding the connector hallway. But Kino, better for that. The Nitro's out, but the bomb chassis stops it. That one not so much, though, as the plant is interrupted. Still, 2 players standing here for OXG, and Laxing with a big frag right there. Plants are going down for the last attempt now. If OXG can stop this one, they win the round. They're trying to pinch it, but the support is there from Lucan as well. The air jab to ensure the final player does not make a successful push. MIBR close out on round 11 and push up onto map point.
Oh, okay. All right. That, okay, so that's an end to a round. That, okay. MIBR ends up downing, I believe, the Goyo, coming into, in from kitchen into dining. Other member of Oxygen gets air jabbed, trying to exit the room and deal with the last remaining member of MIBR out inside of Fireplace. But all of that quickly dispatched by Philippox. After, well, initially, we see the Oxygen member get downed inside of dining. Philippox hops too and is able to find the frag on the recently air jabbed defensive member. MIBR end up winning the round simply based off of a very nice air jab that was placed really early on by Reduct. I think he placed that in the first 45 seconds, and that ends up being the piece of the puzzle that wins them the round. And that's why Siege gets so weird sometimes, folks. But it seems like we are indeed going to have a technical timeout, and you can't exactly blame them. This is Oxygen's map choice after all, and MIBR up on map point right now.
Yeah, so a very well-timed timeout coming in here for OXG, as they need to focus everything they have on this next round here. Otherwise, MIBR are going to be taking the first map, and that's a very dangerous element to play into this series, in my opinion. I think that the second map that we're about to go into, Villa, could end up being very heavily sided for MIBR, given the proclivity of play for that map on the inside of Latin America, as well as the somewhat sketchy results looking at both the histories of OXG, and to be honest, MIBR too. But MIBR, something I noticed looking at those statistics, inside of the regional leagues, it's been banned out quite often by other teams against them. So I'm curious if there is some somewhat hidden fear among Latin American teams about playing MIBR on this map, and that could explain why they don't get a lot of results on it, because they're not able to get it through the ban pool very often.
All the LATAM rosters know something that we don't. And now Oxygen are going to get taken to Villa, and
that's
completely dismantled. They're taking Oxygen to the chop shop, man. They're just cutting them down to size. They're doing
that's what the Oxygen fan in me fears anyway. So I hope that those are unfounded, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, the NA fan in me hopes that Oxygen can do something on Villa, but the Siege fan in me overall is like, I think LATAM's going to be pretty scary there. So I don't really know, man. I'm still in the same boat as what Kickstar was talking about on the analyst desk. With this map pool, it really can go either way. way, it's just kinda scarier when it comes down to Oxygen, for me, at least personally. But either way, though, we're finally done with the tactical timeout, and it's gonna be back to game and bar here, at least for Oxygen, as, well, they'll be getting things set up, and this looks to be, well, pretty straightforward when it comes down to it. We're gonna have the Frost coming back in, we have the laser gates, and Goyo coming back into the mix as well.
Guess the other continuing storyline into this matchup too is, will Latin America continue to be, you know, the Grim Reaper inside of this tournament, taking out so many teams, obviously not taking anyone out in this case, but still sending another team down to the lower bracket, and specifically NA teams as well. Two of our North American teams that managed to make it through into the playoff stage have already been eliminated by Latin American teams, and a third series is about to be lost by another one.
Setting reload.
Okay, well, MIBR out and onto the field for what could possibly be their last round here on Chalet up against Oxygen, and they've shifted things up as well. Falls adopting the ace for the very first time here, and yep, already seeing that change come through. The breaching charges as the secondary utility now for him. It's going to be the entry point here for MIBR as well, as Reduct will claim space down low, more than likely just attempting to get some air jabs up so there can't be any late rotates from OXG, and this has worked out quite well for them, as quite often Oxygen are trying to get in their face. Not so much inside of that last round, but I believe we did indeed see a singular member go down low, and that's where we saw Reduct pick up that frag. A possible kill right here is, oh no, they didn't drone out the Rat King himself. Laxing back to basics here, 12-1 and 6 currently, lighting up the scoreboard and also getting the opening frags for the defense.
Kino as well, prepared to potentially take on one of the early entries from MIBR if they continue to put pressure on the library position. Relaxing though, starting to rotate back up, nearly getting caught himself by a bit of a ratty position from Felipox here, but no dice in this situation, and in fact, Laxing gets himself a second kill. Nitro nearly putting some damage onto Felipox as well, but this time he's able to dodge it, falls back. Takes a more calculated approach to this situation, as they can't afford to throw their bodies at Laxing anymore, let alone do they even have a lot of bodies left anymore. Kino finally getting that fight that we were talking about a few seconds ago, and all of a sudden, just a minute and a half into the round, Felipox and Lucan are the only players left standing for MIBR. OT is almost a certainty now, especially with a third kill rolling in for Laxing.
It seems like Laxing, no matter where he goes, the kills just follow him. He rotates all the way across to West Main, and there's still MIBR members hopping inside of the windows. It's a triple kill right now for Laxing. The best round that we've seen from him so far here on Chalet. It's all down to Lucan now for MIBR, but this is more than likely just going to be a makeshift timeout for them, as they'll discuss some things going into this OT. But what an amazing round from Oxygen, but again, specifically from Laxing on those two initial frags.
Gonna see MIBR continue to try and look Lucan, more specifically, try to make something happen in the 1v5. It's futile at this point, though. No routes into the site, only one of the laser gates dealt with, still at least one more, probably multiple around the corner. Makes one last dash to the outside, where Vertical is waiting to shut down this round and trigger our OT conditions, as we're tied at 6-6. OXG not out of the fight just yet.
Well, overtime here for Chalet in between these two, and it's going to be MIBR starting out on defense as well, and defense was their most potent side, so see if that actually is able to stand the test of time, or at least stand throughout the Chalet in between these two. Master Bedroom, the first defense here for MIBR, and well, they're going to be keeping around that alibi, a possible 6 pick later on, but there is a couple of operators here that could also fit that description. We also have Echo along for the ride as of right now, so just see what they're exactly looking to change up, if anything at all, and no, not a single person being 6 picked away, so this is indeed the strategy for MIBR when it comes to this top floor.
I'll play again coming out from them. Once more, this is the site. Similarly, as OXG have also found quite a bit of success here. I believe this was also one of the more successful ones inside of this matchup for MIBR, also due to their very well-placed aggression here, or I should say weighted aggression, choosing when and where, more importantly, to try to take on OXG to avoid losing too many players in the early round, which has often been a factor that's been plaguing MIBR throughout the course of this first map so far. So we'll see if that strategy will yield success once again for the Latin American squad as they try to take the edge in our first round of overtime.
Attackers must locate and defuse.
Well, everything's set up now for MIBR, and it's pretty traditional when it comes down to it. This is usually what we end up seeing. Deployable shield inside a piano, laser gates up and around the area. Looks like we're going to be throwing some soft barricades up on the far side of the map, just for some possible sound cues for MIBR later on. But either way, Oxygen out and about now, and they have the ability to start clearing things out. It looks like they'll begin to do so down low as Laxing is once again adopted. Well, Sam Fisher into the lineup. Going to be using those SAM cams to be able to get rid of some utility around the map, starting off down low with that default camera inside of Garage, as well as having some just some info overall on the possible rotates from any of the defense.
Continue to see the time tick down. Both teams a very tepid approach to this one, as neither wants to make the opening mistake. First E1D charge going to roll out from Kino here. Nothing being really presented as MIBR don't end up baiting into those pings. Lucan will get spotted out by the Gemini as it crosses the hallway there and quickly gets dealt with. Vertical, of course, having the info and translating that over towards his teammates. But what do they react upon it? How do they react upon it? They're going to continue to try and barrel down the pressure onto these more extended positions for MIBR. Obviously, this is a very different approach to what I was talking about at the beginning of the round, with these players being so far out and about from the site. And that same issue that was presented to them during the regulation defense is going to show up here once again. OXG still getting that opening kill nearly every single attacking round.
Oh, it's just so difficult to try and work this side of the building with the way that Oxygen are handling things, especially with Kino and his rappel on the east side here, able to not only man the top balcony area, but also use that double door down low to his full advantage. Looks like Oxygen will overburn for the laser gate here, but they still have stuns and everything else in between in order to assist in pushing Alibi and the others away from the piano area. Vertical still holding onto the window here as Toxic Babes continue to pour out. Kino will continue to hold on to the balcony as well, but not before Raps is able to take him down. It's all of a sudden a 4v4 going into the last 45. Yaga gets a nice concussive blast on the piano player, so they know that he's still there, but he's simply waiting for the hop from the window. Able to reset the gate as well, but oh no, I don't know exactly if they're going to have the utility in order to burn this once again. They have the impacts to be able to use, but it's mostly damage onto Falls now. Yaga with a double kill here. It's down to Felipox inside of the site with Lucan. Well, Lucan roaming around somewhere else. Nice shots here from Felipox, looking for the second to actually equalize now, but it's actually going to be Lucan instead playing inside of the bathroom. Oxygen looking disjointed, but finally Foxay and Vert able to get it back together. Foxay doesn't have enough bullets. Can the pistol do it? It can. He has to slap this plant down now. He'll begin. Only 4 seconds remaining, but oh no, he's canceled it, and Felipox able to take down Vertical. Lucan picking up that last frag onto Foxay, and MIBR make it out of the first OT by the skin of their teeth.
I thought they were done. I thought they had nothing left on the inside of that round, going all the way down to a 2v4, I believe, but until they finally start to turn things around with that beautiful trap setup split between the two remaining players. One putting pressure from the inside of the office against the hallway, another pressure from the solarium and the hallway connector. Beautifully done by those last two players on MIBR, and now they take the advantage going into what could once again be the final round of this map if MIBR are able to find success one final time on their attack.
You have to feel for Oxygen inside of that round. They did everything right up until the dying moments, and all of a sudden it just falls apart in their hands, especially for Foxay, able to get the entry there and actually work his way into office, but not having enough ammo inside of that Type 89. And that's the one thing about Habana that we all talk about, is that, you know, that AR, such a fantastic weapon, has a 1.5, really manageable recoil, but it's the mag capacity for that that weapon that really hinders it. And that is the one downfall to it. And you don't honestly see it happen all that often to where you run into a lot of issues with that, you know, being the way that it is, because you're usually in like 1 to 2 gunfights and then you reload. But inside of that instance, Foxay seemingly not having the time to reload or just didn't have the awareness of how low his mag indeed was, ends up running out of ammo, has to switch over to the secondary, and that just makes his next follow-up gunfight so very difficult because of the minimal amount of HP that he had.
Well, let's see if MIBR can get the job done. Once again, defaulting to that first floor hold for themselves here, as they're going to go for the bar defense, try and see if they can net themselves that, or excuse me, Oxygen going for the bar defense, trying to see if they can net themselves that one pivotal round that is needed to, more importantly in this situation, keep them in the game. MIBR with a very slow clear yet again, only 2 players working their way into the building initially, and they're almost entirely going to come from a side of the building where there is 0 presence from OXG, so MIBR will be safe for the current control that Reduct has, also being supported, I believe, by Lukid on the rappel. Aside from that, though, we've got a couple other players still in the outskirts around areas like Library, trying to see what the actual setup from OXG looks like.
As of right now, MIBR simply working the northeast side, already have Sledge as well as quite a few MIBR members centralized around this area. This looks to be the Oxygen setup that we saw from a few rounds ago for this exact site. Laser gates up around the office area, as well as the window here in order to bait out as much utility from MIBR as possible. And it seems like that will be working. They are aware that there is a shield at the top of blue, though, and well, that's dealt with accordingly. Get rid of the gate, burn the ADS, and get that frag grenade in there to destroy that positioning. So far, so good for MIBR. No real damage dealt to them, as they've only dealt 5 HP to Yogg.
With that slow progress being made, as the breach is once again going to allow them to skip one of these 2 laser gates. The second one there, most notably the one that's sitting directly in front of Lukid, probably going to be dealt with regardless, just because it's kind of a necessity in this scenario. Either way, though, Vertical in a very delicate position there, just behind that Goyo shield at the top of the front metal stairs. I believe MIBR are well aware of this position as well. You can see someone at the very front door of the facility trying to flush out that player should they be forced back to the top staircase itself. Falls, though, striking first instead, and it's not against the player you'd expect, Vertical. It's in fact Yogg, I believe, sitting towards top blue, that is taken out of the mix here, and MIBR gets the spoils. Another kill comes for them, but finally a response from OXG as Kino picks one up. Vertical, off to correct myself, they didn't realize that he was in this position, waits it out and is rewarded for it, but now has to stay alive is the problem. Philippox has the cutoff from the outskirts window. Laxing and Kino now the last 2 alive. A Nitro up, and it finds a frag as Falls goes down. That's the case. Also getting dropped, but more than likely just a temporary drop here, as we're now down to Kino and Laxing to clutch this out. 15 seconds left as the 2 remaining players on MIBR, Reduct and Philippox, try to do the same thing, but they can't even find their opponents. Laxing with the double from the corner takes them down, and OXG survive again to push this to round 15.
He's just got insane positioning, this guy. Laxing doing it once again. He bails Oxygen out of a terrible situation. Nitro Cell downs the case upstairs, immediately rotates back into sight and takes up a position that he knows cannot get droned out with such minimal time remaining. Obviously, MIBR think that there's going to be Oxygen members at more pivotal positions, like all the way back at bar stock and things like that, but not the case. Did not check their corners. He's simply laying there with arms wide open, waiting for any of the Brazilians to come in through bar, and that's exactly what he'll get. We're at max OT now, folks. 7-7. It's anybody's game, as MIBR will be back on defense.
It is a battle of the Titans right now, as we are seeing 2 very clear leaders on both teams. For MIBR, it is Falls and Lukid. For Oxygen, it is Laxing as well as Yogg. Both these players have been firing off on all cylinders on the inside of this map. And remember, guys, this is just the first map of the series here, and it's come this close. I shudder to think of the play we are going to see over the next 2 maps if this series continues to be as close as it currently is.
I am absolutely terrified of Villa right now, John. I'll be completely honest with you. Villa is usually the map where we see the utmost craziness, especially with like roam games around the basement and things going on with library and some engagements we can get inside of 90. Like there's a bunch of crazy stuff that can happen there, but I'm extremely excited for it. But obviously we got to get through Chalet first and have some of our friends break some stuff down on the analyst desk, but that's a long road away as we got to get through this round once again. So either way, out onto the field now is Oxygen. MIBR back to, well, the usual suspects, especially with Fleepox being back on the Malusi. He's going to dedicate that Banshee back outside onto the balcony, see if that will assist them in any facet. But either way, looks to be going back to basics here for them. They like this setup against Oxygen the previous time, so why can't it work here at Max OT?
OXG just setting up those aggressive cutoffs in the early round here to try and see if anyone from MIBR will cross them and yield a early and more importantly free, hopefully, kill into the favor of OXG. We've been seeing a lot of those transpire in the early rounds, specifically against Falls for some reason, but it's been a long time since we've seen that type of impact made, so probably not going to see too much success in that department here from OXG, as they will have to move forward and start taking map control away. We're going to see that pretty immediately too, as they've already opened up the office wall. That's going to take a lot of the security away for Fleepox, as well as the other three players further back, closer to Solarian.
Well, MIBR slow and steady as of right now. Well, that panel actually going to end up busting open 2 walls, so Lukid will have a nice angle to be able to assist with any office entries. Either way, though, Oxygen are taking their sweet time. They want to make sure to not overstep and end up losing a member early on here. Yaga getting some good information on an MIBR member inside of office with those concussions. I've seen the second broken panel here, so aware of that situation, obviously. Oxygen coiling around this top floor yet again. So he'll have Vertical dedicate himself to the piano window. Still need to clear out a decent amount of this utility, including the deployable shield here at the back of piano, but they have to do it all whilst Lukid is lying in wait right outside in the wings, able to burn out 2 ADSs. Another EE1D out. We'll end up getting the marks onto the Jaeger, so they're aware of 2 positions now from the MIBR members. Lukid, though, trying to get forceful. Ends up getting seen out from the hollow, but looks like Oxygen once again taking a little bit too long, and Fleepox, he gets the frag. Kino with the refrag. He had the cross, but it was a little too late. Yaga down, and that's not any longer going to be the top frag for OXG. 16-2-9 in comparison to Laxing 17-1-7, but now a 4v4 with 30 seconds.
OXG creeping forward here, ready to move on to the site, and with, in my opinion, plenty of excess time at this point in the round as well. Getting the key breach open with 20 seconds left. They obviously still have to push it forward quickly, and here's the big issue. There was still one more Toxic Babe left in Fall's arsenal, so he's able to put a temporary stop on the initial clear. Nitro is prepped for the defenders, but it's way off base. Problem is, though, Foxe reacts to it anyway and reveals his head to Falls. Lukid shuts down another one. Kino has to hold it all, but he's doing it. Lukid shuts down the plant, and Rep shuts out the last player. MIBR take the opening map all the way to round 15 and close it out in the last round.
Oxygen not able to find the opening frags necessary to force the site like they wanted. It just seemed as though they were not able to do anything with the information that they had gathered upstairs, and instead it was MIBR to strike as soon as Oxygen rang the bell. Fantastic round for them, and they're going to take Chalet 8-7. Some fantastic stuff for them, moving us on to Villa.
Big plays on Chalet indeed for MIBR, and that's a really big win in my opinion, like I said, for MIBR. Going on to Villa, they're probably going to be really comfortable on that map, being able to play fully into their own play style, where now OXG might be changing themselves a little bit. They've got to fight for survival now. They've got to be careful. They've got to make sure not to overextend in certain areas, and that type of play style, that type of mentality of trying to play not to get knocked down into the lower bracket could end up hurting them in the long run of things. They'll have to be very cautious of that. That's going to do it for myself and Stokes on game number 1. We're going to throw it immediately back down to Kix and Parker to break down this first map and get us ready for the second, coming up in just a few minutes.
Well, that was an exciting first match, and it was billed to the stakes that we thought it would be, Michael. Back and forth. Was there ever any point during that matchup where you thought it was going to swing in the direction where it didn't end up going?
where it didn't end up going.
As in, Michael, was there a period of time where you thought this is definitely going to go for this?
I got it. Yeah, no, it did. There were some moments where I thought Oxygen were going to be able to take that one, Parker, to be honest. I mean, based on the performance we saw from Yaga and Laxing, I honestly thought that they might be able to carry all the weight. But there was one person in particular for me that really crippled OXG, and it was Kino. And this is bound to happen. You know, this is his first serious big event. He's a very young player. He's going to be feeling the pressure, but there were too many instances where he's got a job like a flank watch, something to hold down, you know, something he needs to accomplish, and he's letting his team down. That last round was the most specific example I could think of where he failed to cover Yaga from the push that we saw on the breach. And that's, you know, the aggression working out there for MIBR is really, I guess, the story of the match. They've been very aggressive and it's been working out.
Yeah, especially with the roles that Kino is playing. On your screen right now, you saw first 3 rounds, he was playing that Ashe quite regularly, and well, he ran into a bit of problems there getting onto the scoreboard. The good thing for OXG, despite it being a losing effort, they had both Yaga and Laxing step up quite a lot. As for MIBR, though, this was a pretty even affair for this team. Obviously, they had some standout performances, but there was no real weak link here. For the fact that they were playing on OXG's map, do you think the fact that everybody from MIBR showed up, but nobody particularly jumped out as dominating the game, do you think that sets us up well for the second map?
I think it does. I think this series is still likely to be very close. Obviously, it would have been good for Oxygen to win on their map, but now they'll be going to MIBR's map, Villa. Now, it was talked about briefly, and I agree it's a little bit risky that we're going to Villa here for Oxygen. Obviously, we don't have a lot to talk about when it comes to Oxygen's performance on this map. They've played it twice. They've won it 0 times. So there's, you know, when I say not a lot to talk about, I mean not a lot of good things to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to quantify international events, right? I mean, especially with roster changes, and we talk about this regularly, we talk about this frequently, and how these teams will match up. It is always tough. You know, that first map, you can focus on OXG a little bit more. Even like I said, though, it is a losing effort. It's their map. The stakes for them are the highest. And the fact that we've been critical of OXG's map pool might actually prove us right with the way that this map played and then the way that the next map played. You know, in a way, if this had gone in OXG's favor, what we'd be saying right now was, okay, OXG won their map, but look at how close MIBR brought it. That is a good thing for MIBR for the second map, which is their own pick on Villa.
Yeah,
obviously
that's true.
MIBR won it, so this should be on paper, this should be a 2-0, but we know that with the way that SIs happen, that isn't always the case.
Yeah, it's not always. I mean, and this is, of course, the upper bracket. We're getting pretty deep into it right now. Oxygen are going to be fighting tooth and nail, I would imagine, to keep on to their position, even though they're going into a map that they're not necessarily going to be too comfortable with. Based on the play we just saw, assuming we see Kino and Foxy contribute a little bit more on the scoreline, I think Oxygen is probably actually going to take this map. But that's assuming. And, you know, that's also, you know, hoping that nobody else falls into the gutter, because we so often see that be the case. When somebody steps up, somebody else has to step down. We'll find out when we get to the map.
Michael Falls plays for MIBR. Anyway, we have a match summary for you, so we can bring that up on the screen. I can hear your eyes rolling. I don't even need to look at you. I can hear it.
Yeah,
back and forth. I feel like when we were watching that matchup, all the notes I was taking and the time spent flipping between it and the mainstream as well, every single time I looked up, MIBR was winning the round. And then every time I'd look back up, I'd say, whoa, it's very close here.
Yeah, it's definitely, it was kind of an oddly close match, if that makes sense. So the rounds where teams were winning, they looked so dominant in that victory. And there were a lot of weird gaps for both teams, like Oxygen failing to hold on to their position in dining and not being able to deny the plant, not having a plan to deny the plant, just kind of throwing their bodies at the problem, MIBR gunning them down. The positioning on defense from Oxygen was excellent. So much better than what we're used to seeing out of North America. And I really want to hammer that one home, because the first half, Oxygen went down 4-2 on their attacking half. It looked like it was over. We always talk about Chalet as an attacker-sided map. But no, a rally back for Oxygen when they get onto the defense, and they start looking really good because, again, of that positioning. Normally, North American teams, when they're roaming, for example, they will fall back off their roam with like a minute left on the clock because they just want